Okay, so we're off to part B of the spreadsheet, and I want to go through the spreadsheet and tell you how to populate some of the numbers that are down here at the very bottom. Mine are going to auto-calculate here a little bit, and I'm just going to delete some of these out of there, so that way it doesn't confuse you. I'll talk about the concentration in just a minute, but I'm going to delete those as well, and we'll go through those calculations too at a different time maybe. So the first thing that I want to focus on are just the raw numbers. We got all of these reports, and we're going to focus on the standards first. I know that these are standards because up here at the top it tells me that it says Cal point 6. And very often we like to run things in duplicates. So we might be actually taking an average here, not just looking at one. But for the sake of time, I'm only going to do one of each standard, put them into the table, and we're going to start generating some data that we need to use for the spreadsheet and the data part of this lab. All right, so first off, this is Cal point 6. I see that at the very top. Cal point 6, the spreadsheet tells me ethanol is at 5.5 minutes for this particular year, and the propanol is at 7.951 minutes. So there's those two peaks. Those are the ones that I want to focus on. And down at the table below, here is 7.951. There is the area that goes along with that value. And then down here is 5.593, and here's the area that goes along with that value. So I need those numbers, and before I do any kind of calculation with them at all, I need to put those numbers into the spreadsheet. So this is Cal point number 6. It is at the mils used 50. This was our strongest calibration curve. It's going to be our highest areas that we're going to see. And the way that this table is made, it was just made that way. There was no rhyme or reason. It was just made to be highest on top, and then it gets weaker, weaker, weaker. So that is where standard number 6 information is going to go to. So here it says area of the ethanol. All right, well, ethanol is 5.593. So that area from the table is 13717. So I hit enter. All right, so I've keyed in that, which looks good. Next up, for that same standard, I see area of propyl alcohol or propanol. There's a blue box that's there. I'm going to click that, and my propanol is 7.9 minutes, so I go to the table. There's 7.9, and right beside of that is 53834, so I key that value in as well. All right, so as far as ethanol and propanol go, guess what? Done. Done. That's all I got to do. So I don't really care about any of the other information that is showing up in the report. Who cares? All right, so now I'm going to look for my next one. That is Cal point number 5. And here's Cal point number 5. I see that at the very top. And I do the same thing. Ethanol is 5.5 minutes. So right here is what we're looking for. And then my propanol is 7.95. So again, right there is what I'm looking for. So if I go down to the bottom of that report at 5.596 minutes, I see an area, and that's 9355. All right, so this is number 5. I'll click that blue box under area for the ethanol. And that's how we made standard 5. We took 35 milliliters of stuff. 9355 is going to go there. Next up is the internal standard, 7.953. And that number is 53677. So over here, I'll type in 53677. And then I hit enter. All right, now I'm going to pause just for a minute. We're going to talk about what these numbers, do they make common sense? All right. So first, let's look at the ethanol peak. The ethanol peak for standard 6 was 13,000 and some odd change. And the ethanol peak for standard 5, which should be weaker, is 9,000 and some odd change. This standard is weaker, therefore the area should be lower. And it is. So that's a very good sign. Somebody maybe did their job the right way, I hope. Now let's look at the propanol, which is the internal standard. Remember, we added the same amount of propanol to every single headspace container. That is the definition of the internal standard. We are adding the same amount across the board to everything, and we hope that that same amount does not fluctuate from injection to injection to injection. So what we want to see here with the area of the propanol is that it stays about the same number. And if I look at these values, the first one is 53,000 and some odd change. The next one is 53,000 and some odd change. That looks extremely good. So that means that the injector didn't have any mishaps. It injected the proper amount. Samples were processed maybe the same way. But if I see that number skyrocket high or plummet low, that means that there's something weird that happened with that machine at that moment in time. And I can't trust that data because it doesn't match what it should. And that is being consistent, for the most part, being consistent across the board. All right, so these slight differences we can account for a little bit later on. All right, so there's standard number 5. Notice I didn't care about anything else. Now we'll look for standard number 4. That's going to be kind of next in line. There we go. Standard number 4, I know it's standard 4 because it says Cal Point 4 up here at the top. And again, I'm going to look for something close to 5.59. So here's a 5.6. There's my ethanol. And then 7.95, something close to it. Well, 7.95. There's my propanol. I go down to the table below. And I'm like, okay, here is my ethanol peak. And here's my internal standard. Here's the area for ethanol, 4788. And here's the area for my propanol, 48,607. All right, so I'll key in the area for ethanol. That was made using 20 mils in standard number 4. So 4788. All right, well, the area went lower. It should. My concentration went lower. And then the internal standard was 48607. Oh my God, what happened? I thought you said these numbers need to be the same. Well, they should. If your instrument is performing the proper way, these should not be changing. And here it did. I mean, when you compare this to the first two, it did, at least. So here it looks like there was less internal standard that was picked up. Now, two things could happen. Number one, it could have been an issue with the auto sampler. It could actually not have injected as much, and that made you get a lower value because of that. But we can correct for those mistakes. We're getting ready to do it sooner or later. We'll do it. I promise we'll get there. Or there could have been an issue with the prep. Maybe that person did not pipette 1 milliliter or whatever they needed of the internal standard. Maybe their pipetting skills were not very good. Maybe they need to go back to 114 or 115 and they need to redo those volumetric pipetting exercises and those micro pipetting exercises again and again and again and again. It could be either or. So I'm not blaming the machine totally. It could have been. But it could have also been sample prep and an analyst problem. So we'll leave that number in there for now and we'll see what happens. All right, so there's standard 4. Next up is going to be standard number 3. Here's standard number 3, or the report at least. We made this by taking 10 milliliters of the mixed standard and diluting it down further. So as before, we're looking for something close to 5.59, so 5.6, and then 7.95, so 7.95. Those are the two I'm focused on. We are reporting ethanol values and nothing more. So here, in the spreadsheet, in the standard 3 row, I'm going to type in the area for ethanol. So 5.6 is here. That area is 2429. And 7.9 is the propanol. And that area is 47,657. Uh-oh. All right, so I'll click that cell. And I'll do 2429. And then I'll come over for the internal standard. And I'll type in 47657. Now that one is on par to the other one. So did the same person make both of those? If so, then maybe their pipetting skills do need work. These were ran back to back in the machine, probably at standard number 4 and standard number 3. So was there a little hiccup in the instrumentation during that time? Maybe. But again, we can correct for that, and we'll see how this fleshes out in just a minute. All right, so there's standard 3. Next is standard number 2. Standard number 2 is right here. I see that at the very top. Ah. Well, I go down. I know the retention times. 5.6, 7.9. So 5.6 and 7.9 are here. And these are the numbers I'll type in to Excel. So I'll come over where it says 5, because we used 5 milliliters to make this standard with. And I'm going to type in 1151 and then 50109. Got one more left. Notice what happened to the internal standard. It went back up. Not like it used to be, but it did go back up. And then finally, we get to standard number 1. All right. So here's standard number 1. I see that at the top. It says rerun. Okay, that's interesting. Then we come down to the table below. And we're like, okay, 5.59. So 5.59 is right here. 5.56, close enough. Yeah, that's good. And then our internal standard at 7.0. Whoa, wait a minute. Where's the internal standard peak? It's not there. That's odd. Well, that's probably because the person that made this standard did not put the internal in it. They completely forgot it in the sample prep. Again, mistakes can be made on the analyst side. So we hope that 7.95 is going to be there for everything. Our samples, our standards, our quality checks, everything. We hope that that is there. And in this case, it was not. So, guess what? Whammy, whammy, whammy. They just didn't do very good sample prep here, and I get to call them out on it. Well, okay, we could include the ethanol peak. So I'm going to go to the spreadsheet right beside where it says 2 milliliters. I'm going to key into that box the area for ethanol at 5.56. So 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, and then I hit enter. That's what that number says. 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9. And there's no internal standard peak at all. So over here to the side, I'm going to put 0. All right, so let's talk about the problem with the internal standard. If you do not have internal standards in your standard set, you cannot include the standard. And that's because we're getting ready to do a little bit of math here. The whole purpose of this column was to make sure the injection was performing the same way. And we've got to use that number in math. And that math formula is going to divide by the internal standard. You cannot divide by 0. Doesn't make any sense. So that is going to eliminate standard number 1. We will not be able to use it at all. And it's simply because they forgot to do that one simple little step. All of that sample prep, all of the standard prep doesn't mean anything anymore. And that's because you forgot to add that one little thing. And now everything stops in the analysis until we get a really good standard one that we can key into the system. Well, we're actually not going to key it into the system, right? We've got the freedom to do so. And we do not like this 0, so we're just going to delete it. We're going to get it out of there. We're not going to have a standard one. And then in addition to that, look at what else happened. Here is my standard 6, 13,000. It went to standard 5, lower amount, 35 mils, lower area. Then it went to 20 mils, lower amount, lower area. Then it went to 10 mils, lower amount, lower area. Then it went to 5 mils, lower amount, lower area. And then it went to 2 mils. And then it went 234,000. Sorry, this person just did not know what they were doing. They got confused. They added the wrong stuff. I don't know what they did. But it is clearly not made the appropriate way. So not only is the internal standard missing out of the set, but the area for the ethanol does not make any sense either because it is skyrocketly high. It is higher than standard number 6, and there's no way that can be a possibility. So because of that, we're going to delete that number as well. We just get rid of it. Down here at the bottom are the blanks. And for the blanks, we can key in zeros here, and the blanks should not really have internal standards in them either. Those are internal standards, or they are proper blanks the way that we ran them. Nothing should be involved, and we'll leave it kind of like that for a minute. So we are eliminating standard number 1 based on what we saw, and then we also ran them in duplicate. I only pulled one of each. So you're going to go through and you're also going to key in numbers into these empty cells that go along with these standards. You should have 2 data sets for every single standard that you run. So I'm going to go back to standard 6 and I'll find the duplicate and I'll do the same thing. What's its ethanol peak? What's its propanol peak? And then I'll key those areas into the spreadsheet and I'll just complete the table that way. All right. So with that said, I'm going to go through and update the cells I'm not going to verbally explain them. I'm going to pull them up. I'm going to look at those reports. I'm going to key in the information. I hope that standard number 1, the duplicate, will actually work. If it does, I'll key those in. I'll have them ready for the next video. And then we'll talk about what to do next with the data.